brief intro and just kind of talk to Federated and Hartford's partnership.
That sounds great. Thank you, guys.
Yep. Federated and St. Louis NTMA have partnered together for over a decade now. And we're very fortunate for our partnership and be recommended on the property and casualty insurance for the NTMA members. Federated has many partners in the insurance space, and one of our most valuable partners is Hartford Steam Boiler. So while we write our cyber policies on Federated paper, we are actually going through Hartford Steam Boiler to place that coverage. So today we have Sid with us from Hartford Steam Boiler, and just a little bit of background on Sid. So Sid has over 25 years of experience in the cybersecurity landscape. He's actually was the founder and CEO of Zaguro, which was a cybersecurity company focused on small to mid-sized businesses, which is exactly who we work with at Federated. In late 2021, Hartford Steam Boiler actually acquired Sid's company. So he has been with Hartford Steam Boiler for since 2021. And I know for a fact with how much capacity and how great of an organization Hartford Steam Boiler is, they would not have acquired Sid's organization if it was not extremely valuable to the small and mid market. So we're very fortunate to have him with us today. And Sid, I'll let you take it away from here, man.
Great. Thanks for that intro, Jake. I don't think I could do an intro of myself in that way, but thank you.
Absolutely.
And as Jake mentioned, I've been in cybersecurity for over 25 years now. And today the goal will be to help businesses, especially in the manufacturing sector, understand what cyber risks exist for them specifically, and what can be done to decrease those risks and to stay protected. Our mission has always been to empower every business to withstand the digital unknown. Right? And when we say digital unknown, it's primarily all the cyber risks that you have no idea about. Right? And how can you stay protected? So with that, I'll get started. So I mean, we always hear that there's so many attacks happening every day. Right? It's in the news every single day. Right? And it's usually about all of these big hacks or attacks that we hear in the news, whether it is companies like Facebook or WhatsApp, Twitter, right? These are all big companies which have a huge presence, who have millions of customers or users. What we don't hear as often are the attacks that happen on smaller and medium-sized businesses. And even though we see all of these news articles about these huge attacks, no one really talks about what that means for us as individuals and for small and medium businesses. Right? We all get impacted by it. Right? In 2024-25, there were some really big cyber attacks on the manufacturing side as well. So for example, this year, Stryker had a cyber attack as a result of the recent war or the escalations going on in the Middle East. So it's not just cyber attackers who are doing this for money. It's also various nation states who might be carrying out various cyber attacks to prove a point. And our goal is to make sure that we are prepared and stay secure from all of these different actors or bad actors across the globe. And especially for small and medium-sized businesses, right? So, and about 50% of small and medium-sized businesses have been victims of a cyber attack. That's a huge number. We never really think about that. We never really see that in the news. And most small businesses think that they're not a target because they're too small to be a target. But on the contrary, smaller and medium-sized businesses are the primary target for attackers, right? We need to think of these cyber attackers or bad actors as running a business. And there literally are many businesses where people come in from 9 to 5 and their job is to carry on cyber attacks. That's a real business. And the best way to make money is to target businesses that are not very well prepared to withstand these cyber attacks. Right? It's about the low-hanging fruit. How can they make a quick buck without too much effort? And hence, smaller and medium businesses usually become a key target. Manufacturing is definitely susceptible, right? Over the last 5 to 6 years, the manufacturing sector has been the primary target for cyber attacks. And that's because all the cyber attackers know that every minute that a manufacturing company's systems are down, it's drastically impacting the business. And as a result, manufacturing businesses are more likely to pay ransom when there's a cyber attack. And that is why when we look at the top 3 cyber attacks based on all of our previous claims data, or even based on the other publications within the industry, ransomware is the primary attack for the manufacturing sector. And then it is business email compromise. We'll go into the details of what these really mean and how we can protect ourselves. But yep, ransomware is the top attack, then business email compromise, and then social engineering. Social engineering is where someone can pretend to be, let's say, CEO of one of your vendors and ask you to click on a link, and then you click on the link because you expect that person to be real. And that will install a ransomware, that can install ransomware or malware. So it's all of these different attacks that are easy to carry on today, and manufacturing is a key target. And as I go through this, if anyone has any questions, please interrupt or let me know. Now that's historical data, right? So far, up until the end of 2025, that's what we have been seeing. However, cyber threats and the landscape is always changing, right? There's so many different kinds of attacks that keep happening every single day. There's new technology that is enabling these attacks to be much easier. So what we'll go through today is these 5 emerging attacks, or these 5 key attacks which are being impacted by new technology. And we'll look into what that means and how we can protect businesses. The first one, ransomware attack. I'm sure everyone knows what a ransomware attack is. This is typically when your systems get bricked or your database gets stolen, and to release any of that information, you need to pay a ransom. However, what's happening nowadays is double and triple extortion. So double extortion is where an attacker might encrypt all of your data and ask you to pay ransom to decrypt it. And in addition to that, they'll also threaten to leak it. Right. So because a business might already have backups, so they might not need to pay to decrypt the data. However, if the attacker releases that data or leaks it, then there'll be financial impact, there might be regulatory fines, there might be reputation damage. So attackers are getting smart enough to figure out how they can use multiple ways to get ransom from you as a business. There's also ransomware as a service. Right? Again, these attackers, they are business people. Right? They need to make money somehow. And there are tools where they sell these tools for anyone to be able to carry on a ransomware attack. And that's essentially ransomware as a service. So they just create these tools, sell it. Anyone who is not technically savvy can just buy those tools and carry out ransomware attacks. So it's become extremely easy for any hacker or bad actor to carry on these ransomware attacks. These are some big ransomware attacks that happened over the past few years. I'm not sure if you would have heard about the CDK attack last year, or in 2024, late 24, where the attack on CDK, which is a supplier to various auto dealers, was impacted the ability for all of these auto dealers to operate. They had to start taking all of their customer data on pen and paper. They were not able to take any payments or issue any loans. None of that was possible for these auto dealers during this ransomware attack.
Yeah, the CDK attack was actually very prevalent at Federated. We insure many auto dealers across the country, and the majority of my dealers that were impacted were pen and paper for 3 to 4 weeks. So it was definitely a huge disruption.
Yep, and it's happening every single day. We just might not be aware of it. The next big threat is business email compromise. Now, this is where hackers or attackers, they figure out how to illegally access your email, right? It could be through social engineering, right? It could be the days of a Nigerian prince sending an email with horrible English are gone, right? Because now that Nigerian prince can use AI to craft a perfectly formed email and send it to someone at your company. And when they click on that link, it could install or a malware which can detect your emails that are going through. And what they could then do is manipulate those emails, right? So this is essentially business email compromise. And now, especially with AI, email spoofing has become really easy. They can create really good-looking, realistic phishing emails to make it easy for anyone to get that information from your employees or your teams. And one of the things that this leads to is payment fraud. So, for example, if you have to pay an invoice to one of your vendors, right? The email compromise could help the attacker change the ACH details within that invoice. So you could end up sending the payment to the wrong bank account. And all of this could easily happen through a business email compromise attack. One of the new things that is going on is payroll diversion fraud, right? The same thing, where they manage to change the employee's details so they can easily pretend to be an employee, send updated ACH details to the company or to the HR person. And as a result, the money goes into a different account instead of the employee's bank account. Now, the other big impact, especially for the manufacturing industry, are supply chain attacks. This is where third parties get compromised. CDK is one of those examples where CDK is a third party. It's part of that whole supply chain for auto dealers. In 2025, there was this attack where a bad actor, they infected this video service that is used by dealerships. And as a result, all the visitors to that dealer's page were had malware installed on their computers. So this impacted more than 100 car dealers. And this kind of supply chain attack is growing in prominence. And that's because hackers know that they have more leverage by attacking these supply chain vendors with the downstream impact that this could have. The other thing to remember with supply chain attacks is it's not just in software. It could also be in equipment. So now it says quite easy to deploy malware into the software of an equipment. Right? We all use IoT devices, which takes us to the next one. Right. Oops, sorry. IoT devices are everywhere, right? Today, I mean, I'm guilty of that as well. In my house, I have about 100 or more than 100 IoT devices. And an IoT device is an Internet of Things device, which is essentially any device that is connected to the internet. right? It could be your camera, your doorbell. It could be some equipment that is being controlled using a software which is connected to the internet. So any of these items or any of these devices are referred to as IoT devices. What happened with IoT devices is that because the amount of memory and the processing power is limited in these small devices, and because everyone was in a rush to create new IoT devices about 10 years ago, there was not a big focus on cybersecurity for these IoT devices. As a result, most of these IoT devices are very vulnerable. Attacking these IoT devices could help take over the Wi-Fi within your company's network, or it could help propagate the attack to other devices within the business. It's fairly easy to attack these IoT devices and then use those to carry on other attacks on other devices. But all of this has been exaggerated by AI. Of course, we always hear about AI. I mean, that's the hottest topic today. At the same time, AI combined with cyber attackers or bad actors is leading to quite a few more cyber attacks recently. Right, as I mentioned, phishing is now extremely easy. Right, creating hyper-realistic emails or creating hyper-realistic voice calls and video calls, that's become extremely easy. And we are seeing a big increase in the number of attacks that are a result of using AI by the cyber attackers. I mean, this is a good example where it was a deepfake scam, and on a video call, the hackers used an AI-generated video of the CFO, and the employee sent out $25 million because of that call. So everything AI related is really taking off in the cyber world. Now, at the same time, having said that, it's not all doom and gloom. Right? There are cybersecurity companies which are also using AI to make sure that they identify and detect these cyber attacks as before there's any harm done. So there's pros and cons to AI. Cool. So having said all of that, I think the goal here is to figure out and help everyone understand how you could protect your business. Right? So the way that we always think about cybersecurity is looking at people, processes, and technology. Right? And when we think about risk from cyber attacks, it's that whole value chain, right? So first, identify all the risks that you have, then mitigate those risks. And then the third piece is to transfer that risk through insurance, right? All of these need to be looked at as one single aspect of risk management versus all discrete items or entities. You always have to have insurance because it's not about if, the chances are very likely that there will be some kind of a cyber attack. Now, the mitigation is where the goal is to make sure that you don't have to use insurance, right? That's a goal. And this is where people, processes, and technology come into play. When you think about risk, it's always about making sure that these three pillars of your company are always protected. Making sure that all of your employees, and not just employees, any team member, any contractor who's using any of your digital assets, they need to be aware of all these risks. They need to know what to do or what not to do when it comes to cybersecurity. Making sure that you have all of the right processes in place. Right? These are all of the guidelines that you need to make sure that your employees are doing the right thing, to make sure that your systems are being updated and patched, to make sure that you have the right incident response in place. And of course, the technology, right? You need to make sure that you have all the right tools, whether it is antivirus, malware protection, firewalls, and so on. So it's this holistic view that you need to have and that you need to focus on to protect yourself. Now, there are many, many things that can be done to be secure. It's an extremely fragmented space. There are hundreds and thousands of tools that you can use. There are way too many configurations that can be configured right to make sure that your systems are protected. But I want to focus on just a few key items here. Right? These are the basics that you should always focus on. One is understanding the risk. Always know what the risk is. Right? We do this for various projects, right? You try to understand the risk of not delivering a certain product at a given point in time. Similarly, try and understand the risks of your systems, right? The risks that they have from cyber attacks. And we suggest that doing this risk assessment, at least once a year. Right? What this helps you do is understand your cybersecurity plan, to create a cybersecurity plan, and also know who your critical suppliers and vendors are. Because again, supply chain risk is big nowadays. Making sure that you have multiple layers of security, right? Having just one piece is never enough, right? Quite a few companies, they put in a firewall and that's it. But that's never enough, because any one small vulnerability in that firewall will let the hackers in and they'll be able to access everything. So it's all about those layers, making sure that you have firewalls, you have antivirus or malware prevention on all of your devices, making sure that you have automated detection of any intrusion from bad actors as well. So it's all of these different layers that can be used to make sure that you're secure. Always have backups and encrypt all your data. So again, going back to the ransomware scenario, if you have backups and your data does get encrypted, then you can quickly restore your existing backup and not have to pay the ransom. So it's a great way to make sure that you can quickly recover when there is a cyber attack. Always monitor everything, right? You might not be looking at every single piece of data all the time, but make sure that you're monitoring all the network activity. And there are quite a few tools to do that. There are AI-driven tools which make it extremely easy nowadays. Project, yeah.
You mentioned backups, the importance of backups and being able to restore your data quickly if you have a good backup. Is it possible, or have you heard any cases where a malware has made its way in and then a backup was run with that malware file installed? Yes. So is it a good practice, I assume, then to make multiple backups and not rely on just one?
Yep, absolutely. Right. So it very much depends on the backup schedule as well. Right? So we recommend that you back up daily and keep the backups of the last 60 days at the minimum. Right? So that way, let's say that there was a malware that did get into your backups 10 days ago, then you can revert your backups to the day before that. And this is where, as soon as you have a cyber attack, talking to your insurance provider is critical, because the claims team will immediately bring in the forensics teams, and they will help you understand what was impacted, when it was impacted, and which kinds of backups you can rely on. The next piece is setting up multi-factor authentication. Right? Now, today in our personal lives, we do that all the time, whether it is for your bank account, for most accounts that you use. And we need to do that for our business systems as well. I know there could be many legacy systems that don't support multi-factor, but if they don't, you should ask for that, right? Talk to the vendor who has that, who's providing you that legacy system, or upgrade your systems to the latest versions if you don't have that capability. The risk of not using strong passwords or multi-factor authentication is extremely high, because that's one of the easiest ways to get into your systems. Make sure that all of your systems are up to date. What we see is companies that do not always patch their software or their systems are the ones that get attacked the most. There are so many vulnerabilities that get identified every single day. And especially if it is a zero-day vulnerability, which means that it is extremely critical and attackers are aware of it and they're actively using those vulnerabilities to attack your systems, then patching or updating your systems is the only way to prevent those cyber attacks from occurring. Of all this, I think the key to remember is that people are one of the most critical components of protecting your business. People are also usually the primary reason for cyber attacks. And that's because they just don't know what they don't know. It's not because they intentionally want to damage your business or your systems. They are just not aware of all of the best practices. So continuous training for your employees is absolutely critical. And when I say employees, it should not just be for your full-time employees. It should be for any contractor, any part-time worker who is using your digital systems, or who's accessing your data, who's accessing any of your internet or Wi-Fi systems within the business. And we do recommend doing continuous training, like at least one course a month on different topics. And that's because when you think about the way people remember things, especially about topics that they're not very familiar with, you need that constant reminder. Having these trainings once a year has shown that it doesn't really help with decreasing the risk. The other big part of your whole process is knowing what to do when there's a cyber attack. And this incident response planning has to be done. Has to be reviewed at least once a year, right? Make sure that you test it for example, there are companies that can help you simulate a ransomware attack. And that will help you understand what could happen and what you need to do to recover if there's a ransomware attack. Phishing is one of the primary ways of getting information about your business, right? Or having people click on links to install malware or ransomware. And you don't have to be technically savvy to use various tools that can stop these phishing emails. Right now, again, thanks to AI, there are quite a few AI-powered email solutions which can immediately detect and stop any phishing emails from getting into the inboxes of your employees. So we strongly recommend using tools like that. And to get started, right, you may already have a IT team, but remember that IT capabilities are quite different from cybersecurity capabilities. So make sure that you have a team, whether internal or external, who knows cybersecurity. Right? Find someone who makes it easy for you to understand cybersecurity as well, right? Including all the tools and services. The market is extremely fragmented. And when you usually search for, let's say, a firewall, you'll get results that are applicable to large enterprises, not necessarily for small and medium businesses. So make sure that you have companies or teams that you work with who know cybersecurity for small and medium-sized businesses, for for your company versus for large enterprises. And I will say that there are all of these resources that are available to you as well today with your insurance, right? Which includes all these policies, continuous employee training, ransomware prevention as a service, where we proactively scan the dark web and see if someone is selling your credentials. And if they are, then we buy them and essentially take them off of the market. So essentially, there are all of these tools that are already available to you through Federated. So I'd recommend making use of all of these services. Right. Here's a couple of links that you have access to. You can set up time with a cybersecurity consultant using the concierge link, or just sign up for your cybersecurity account with Federated. Right. So you have access to this. Please make sure that you use them.
Yeah, and I'll add on to that as well. If you're a Federated client, we have access to a plethora of cybersecurity resources on MyShield, our online portal. We have a whole team at our home office, our risk management resource center, that you can set an appointment with, and they will be able to walk you through all those resources, how to sign up for them. We have a lot of in-house resources, and then we also have third-party resources that are typically at a discounted rate for our clients. So if you have interest in that, definitely reach out to your local marketing representative, and they'll be able to set up that meeting with our home office.
Thanks for that, Jake.
Well, thank you so much, Sid. Really appreciate your time and your expertise. We'll definitely be sending this out to the chapter and be able to follow up with, I'm sure we'll get a lot of good out of this. So thank you very much for your time.
Fantastic.
Any additional questions, or are we good to wrap up?
No, I think that was great information, and I took notes on some things I'm going to share, and like I said, I'll share the link with our members for sure.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much. Greatly appreciate you hopping on. Sid, thank you for your time, and Shelly, thank you for the opportunity.
Yeah, thank you, everyone.
Thank you.